All right, so you think you've got Bear Mountain all figured out, huh? Think again. We're going deep, really deep, to see how much of this thriller lines up with reality. Secret technologies, ancient prophecies, let's unpack it.
And that's the beauty of Bear Mountain. It makes you question everything. Are we really in control of our own destiny, or are there forces at play that we can't even begin to understand?
From the very first page, you've got this mysterious organization, the Consortium, mixed up with cutting-edge tech and these artifacts called shards of Yori. It's like Sleeman took all our modern anxieties and threw them in a blender with ancient myths.
It's a potent combination, and I think it taps into a primal fear, the fear of the unknown, the idea that powerful forces are operating behind the scenes, shaping our world in ways we can't even comprehend.
And then there's the technology, which is both exhilarating and terrifying. I mean, weaponized drones with pinpoint accuracy, surveillance tech that can practically read your thoughts.
And that's where the line between fiction and reality gets blurry. Take drone warfare, for example. What Sleeman describes in Bear Mountain isn't that far off from what's happening right now. We're talking about autonomous weapons systems, the ethics of artificial intelligence, the potential for these technologies to be used for good or for evil.
It's like Sleeman is holding up this distorted mirror to our world, making us question how much of what we consider science fiction is just around the corner.
Exactly. And it's that unsettling feeling, that what-if factor, that makes the novel so gripping. But remember, it's not just about the technology itself. It's about who controls it and how they choose to use it.
Oh man, and that twist with Adrian, the tech genius who creates the AI Leviathan, that really threw me for a loop.
Right. It's like Sleeman is saying, even with the best intentions, even in the pursuit of knowledge and progress, we can unleash forces that we can't control. And that fear, the fear of our own creations coming back to haunt us, that's a theme that runs deep in human history.
For sure. But let's talk about those shards of Yori for a second. Ancient artifacts with hidden powers. I mean, come on, who hasn't looked at an ancient ruin or a mysterious inscription and felt a shiver of wonder?
It's that primal fascination with the past, with the idea that there are secrets hidden away, waiting to be discovered. And Sleeman plays on that fascination brilliantly, weaving together ancient prophecies and modern conspiracies.
It's like he took everything we love about lost civilizations, secret societies, those whispers of ancient knowledge, and he blended them seamlessly with our modern-day anxieties.
And that's a heady mix. On the one hand, you have this thrilling sense of adventure, this desire to uncover the truth behind the myths. But on the other hand, there's the potential for misinformation, for getting lost down rabbit holes of conspiracy theories.
It's like that saying, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. One minute you're fascinated by ancient lore, the next minute you're questioning everything you thought you knew.
And in a world flooded with information, with disinformation, that's a dangerous path to go down. But Bear Mountain isn't just about shadowy organizations and ancient mysteries. It also explores the very real human cost of these conflicts.
Absolutely. I mean, Jack Winnell, the protagonist, he's this tough-as-nails ex-soldier, but you can see the weight of his experiences wearing him down. The PTSD, the guilt, the moral dilemmas he grapples with.
And that's what makes his character so compelling. He's not just an action hero. He's a complex individual, wrestling with the consequences of his past, trying to find his way in a world that's often unforgiving.
You can really feel the emotional toll that conflict takes, both on the individual and on those around them. And it's not just Jack, right? Each member of his team is carrying their own baggage, facing their own demons.
Exactly. Sleeman does a great job of showing that even in this world of high-stakes espionage and ancient prophecies, it's the human element, the relationships, the choices we make that ultimately drive the story.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from secret societies to advanced technology to the psychological impact of conflict.
And we're just getting started. Bear Mountain is packed with twists and turns, and we've only just scratched the surface.
So let's dive a little deeper, shall we? You want to know how much of this high-octane plot is actually rooted in reality? Are there really organizations like the Consortium pulling strings from the shadows?
Now, that's a question that has fascinated people for centuries. Well, let's just say the idea of a group like the Consortium has fueled countless conspiracy theories for a reason.
Right. It's like this shadowy cabal controlling world events from the shadows. But how much of that is grounded in reality? Are there really organizations out there with that kind of reach and power?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, history is full of examples of powerful groups operating in secrecy, wielding influence behind the scenes.
Secret societies, powerful dynasties, you name it.
Exactly. But whether those groups had as much control as we sometimes imagine, well, That's up for debate.
Okay, so maybe there isn't a literal consortium running the world. But what about the tech they're using? Megumi, the hacker in Bear Mountain, she can practically infiltrate any system with a few keystrokes. And then there's that Echo Pulse device. How much of that is even remotely possible?
You've hit on a key element of Bear Mountain, that blurring of lines between what's possible now and what might be possible in the near future.
It's like Sleeman is giving us a glimpse into a future that's both exhilarating and terrifying.
Exactly. And when it comes to technology, that line between fact and fiction is constantly shifting.
True. I mean, look at how much technology has advanced even in the last decade.
Right. What seemed like science fiction just a few years ago is now part of our everyday lives. And in the realm of cybersecurity, things are moving at lightning speed. We've seen real-world examples of data breaches, election interference, even attacks on critical infrastructure.
It's like the news headlines are starting to sound like something out of a Bear Mountain novel.
Exactly. So while Megumi's abilities might be heightened for dramatic effect, the underlying technology, the vulnerabilities of our interconnected systems, that's very real.
Okay, so hacking, surveillance, that all feels a little too close to home. But what about some of the other tech in the novel? I mean, that scene where Jack tracks someone through the woods using a thermal scope, I thought that was pure Hollywood magic.
You might be surprised how commonplace thermal imaging is becoming. Law enforcement, wildlife researchers, even some high-end home security systems utilize this technology.
Wow, I had no idea. It's amazing how technology that seems so advanced is already being used in ways we might not even realize.
Absolutely. And Bear Mountain does a great job of highlighting how easily technology can be repurposed or misused.
Okay, so we've talked about tech, but let's move on to something a bit more, shall we say, esoteric. Those shards of Yori, these ancient artifacts imbued with mysterious powers, are we really supposed to buy into that?
Well, that's where Bear Mountain veers into the realm of pure speculation and taps into our fascination with the unexplained.
Because who hasn't looked at an ancient ruin
Right.
or heard a legend and wondered, what if?
Exactly. There's something about the unknown, the mysteries of the past that captures our imagination.
It's like we want to believe there's more to the world than what we can see and touch.
Absolutely. And throughout history, there have been countless stories of objects imbued with extraordinary powers, from King Arthur's Excalibur to the Holy Grail.
But those are just stories, right? Myths and legends.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? While there's no scientific evidence to support the existence of such objects, there's a part of us that wants to believe.
So you're saying that even if we don't find any shards of Yori buried in our backyards, there's still a place for that sense of wonder, for exploring the mysteries that science hasn't fully explained.
Precisely. Think about the Voynich manuscript, this centuries-old book written in an undeciphered language. Or the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek device so complex that it's considered the world's oldest known analog computer.
Okay, those are some pretty mind-blowing examples. So even in our technologically advanced world, there are still mysteries out there that make us scratch our heads.
Absolutely. And Bear Mountain reminds us that even as we make scientific advancements, there will always be questions we can't answer, mysteries that continue to intrigue us.
So it's not just about finding definitive answers. It's about embracing the unknown and allowing ourselves to be fascinated by the possibilities.
Exactly. It's about that sense of wonder, that curiosity that drives us to explore and to question what we think we know.
And maybe that's one of the most realistic aspects of Bear Mountain. The idea that we're all searching for answers, for meaning, for something beyond ourselves.
Absolutely. And in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, it's that search for meaning, that desire to connect with something larger than ourselves that can give us hope.
Okay, so we've explored the shadowy world of the consortium, we've delved into the mind-bending realm of advanced technology, and we've touched upon the enduring allure of ancient mysteries. But I think there's one more layer to this, something that ties directly back to your initial question about the reality of Bear Mountain.
Oh, and what's that?
Well, throughout the novel, we see these characters grappling with incredibly difficult choices, often with life or death consequences. And it makes me wonder, how much of what makes a story feel realistic is less about the external threats and more about those internal struggles, those moments of moral ambiguity?
Now, that's an insightful observation. You're absolutely right. Bear Mountain, for all its high-stakes action and fantastical elements, ultimately hinges on those very human moments of decision-making.
Exactly. It's not just about saving the world. It's about the toll it takes, the choices people have to make, and how those choices shape who they become.
Precisely. And that's what makes Bear Mountain more than just an action thriller. It's a story about human nature, about the complexities of right and wrong and the weight of our decisions.
And those are themes that resonate with us, regardless of whether we're facing down a global conspiracy or just trying to navigate the challenges of everyday life.
Absolutely. So, while we may never encounter a real-life consortium or uncover ancient artifacts with supernatural powers, the emotional core of Bear Mountain, the dilemmas, the relationships, the choices, those are the elements that feel most grounded in reality.
Because ultimately, it's those human elements that connect us to any story, that make us care about the characters and their fates.
Exactly. And that's the power of a well-crafted story like Bear Mountain. It entertains us, it challenges us, and it reminds us of the enduring power of the human spirit.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, from the shadowy world of the consortium to the ethics of advanced technology and the enduring allure of ancient mysteries. But before we wrap up our deep dive, I think it's time to bring this back to you, our listener.
Yes, let's connect the dots. What can we take away from this exploration of Bear Mountain and its relationship to reality?
It's like Bear Mountain throws these curveballs at us, these what-if scenarios, but then it pulls us back and makes us look inward. It's not just about the gadgets and the global conspiracies. It's about the human choices at the heart of it all.
Right, and I think that's what makes the story so compelling, so relatable. Because even if we've never faced a situation like the characters in Bear Mountain, we can all relate to the struggle of making difficult decisions, of wrestling with our conscience.
It's like that moment when Jack has to decide whether to trust Adrian, even though he has every reason to believe his friend has turned, or when Megumi has to choose between her loyalty to the team and her own sense of right and wrong. Tough calls, man.
Absolutely. And those are the moments that stick with us long after we've finished the book. They make us question our own values, our own sense of morality.
It's like Sleeman is saying, okay, you think you know what you would do in that situation? Are you sure?
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's a testament to the power of good storytelling. It's not about providing easy answers or preaching a particular viewpoint. It's about prompting introspection, challenging us to examine our own beliefs and motivations.
So it's less about escapism and more about self-discovery.
Precisely. And I think that's why Bear Mountain resonates with so many readers. It's not just a thrilling adventure, it's a journey of self-reflection.
It's like holding up a mirror to our own moral complexities.
Yeah.
We see ourselves in these characters and their struggles, their triumphs, their flaws.
Exactly. And what makes it even more compelling is that there are no easy answers. Just like in real life, the characters in Bear Mountain are operating in shades of gray, constantly navigating ambiguous situations and making choices with lasting consequences.
And that's something we talked about earlier, this idea that you're drawn to stories that explore the human condition, that delve into the gray areas of morality.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's those human elements that make any story resonate, regardless of how fantastical the setting or how high-tech the gadgets might be.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bear Mountain, what are some key takeaways you'd want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say embrace the thrill of what if. Bear Mountain invites us to consider the possibilities, even if they seem far-fetched. Could there be secret organizations operating beyond our awareness? Are there technologies on the horizon that could reshape our world in ways we can't even imagine? These questions, while rooted in fiction, can spark fascinating explorations in the real world.
It's about nurturing that sense of curiosity, that willingness to look beyond the surface and ask questions.
Exactly. And secondly, I'd say remember that even the most extraordinary stories are ultimately reflections of ourselves. Pay attention to the characters, their motivations, their struggles, and their triumphs. You might be surprised at what those reflections reveal about your own values and beliefs.
It's like that old saying, the best fiction holds a mirror up to reality. So even as you're enjoying the adrenaline-fueled ride of Bear Mountain, take a moment to consider the deeper themes, the human elements that resonate long after you've closed the book.
And finally, never underestimate the power of a good story to spark conversation, to challenge our assumptions, and to make us think critically about the world around us. Bear Mountain is a thrilling example of how fiction can be both entertaining and thought-provoking.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that captivate your imagination. Who knows what hidden truths and unexpected insights you might uncover along the way. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome in. Today, we're diving into Bear Mountain, the Alpine Crucible.
Oh, yeah.
We've got excerpts. This story doesn't mess around. Global conspiracies, ancient artifacts, and tech that'll make your head spin. But, it also makes you think, which is what we're here for.
Yeah.
So ready to unpack the layers of suspense.
Absolutely.
Because we're going on a crash course through this world, meet its key players, and uncover the forces at work. Think of it as getting a backstage pass to a world on the brink. And one thing that really gripped me right off the bat is how technology takes center stage.
Right.
But not in a way you might expect.
Yeah.
It's not just about cool gadgets. It's about how technology shapes us, changes us, and maybe even controls us. Yeah.
And it feels pretty relevant right now, what did you say?
Absolutely. And what's so fascinating here is that the story doesn't shy away from the ethical dilemmas, right? This tech presents. For example, we see this tension play out with occasion in Megumi's own invention. It's a tool, a weapon, a shield, but it's also a vulnerability.
Right.
A connection to a digital world that might be more dangerous than she realizes.
Definitely.
And then there's Bear Mountain itself. It's more than just a backdrop. It's practically a character, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a powerful presence, a force of nature that impacts everything. It's a place of refuge, yeah, but also a battleground, both physically and metaphorically. And we see that reflected in Jack Rennell, the protagonist.
Totally.
He seeks solace in the mountain's embrace, trying to outrun his past, but the mountain has other plans.
His past is so intertwined with Bear Mountain. It's like he's drawn back to it. And it forces him to confront not just external threats, but also his own inner demons.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder, did he seek out the mountain? Or did the mountain seek him out?
Right. It's like the mountain is testing him, pushing him to his limits.
Yeah.
To see what he's made of. We see this most clearly in that chilling encounter with Gunther on the treacherous slopes. Talk about a test of survival. It's a harsh reminder that the mountain demands respect, even as it offers a strange kind of solace.
And then there's Megumi. She's a tech genius, finds solace in the digital world, but even she can't escape the mountain's pull.
Not at all. It disrupts her carefully constructed digital reality.
Yeah.
Forces her to confront something far older, far more powerful than anything she's ever encountered in cyberspace.
And this is where the shards of Yori come in. What did you make of these mysterious artifacts? They're at the very heart of the story, but their true nature remains elusive.
What's captivating is that they represent a power that predates our understanding. A power intrinsically linked to Bear Mountain itself. They are fragments of something ancient, something that binds the universe together, hinting at a balance far more profound than we can grasp.
It's like they hold the key to unlocking the mountain secrets, right?
Yeah.
And everyone wants that key, for better or worse. Speaking of worse, we have to talk about Klaus Claw.
Oh, Klaus Claw. He is the epitome of chilling ambition. He sees humanity as a virus in need of correction, and he believes he has the cure.
Yeah.
His plan, Operation Eclipse, sends shivers down my spine.
The name itself is unsettling, isn't it? What do you make of his choice of words?
It's not just a change he's after, it's eradication. He wants to wipe the slate clean and rebuild the world in his own image.
Yeah.
His vision of a digital utopia is even more disturbing because it hinges on the complete control of humanity. Free will, it seems, has no place in his perfect world.
Exactly. He's not just talking about ruling the world. He's talking about rewriting the very fabric of existence.
Right.
And what's even more terrifying is that he might have the means to do it.
Right.
He's not some lone wolf. He commands the resources of the consortium, a shadowy organization with its fingers in every pie.
Yeah. It's a classic tale of power corrupting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And what's unsettling is how relatable his anxieties about humanity are. The difference is he's chosen a terrifying solution.
Yeah.
One that eliminates free will and choice. It makes you wonder, in a world grappling with such complex problems, his extreme approach, it might be seductive to some.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he preys on our deepest fears about the world.
Yeah.
Climate change, social unrest, technological overreach, and offers this terrifying solution, total control.
Mm-hmm.
But that control comes at a cost, doesn't it?
That's the thing.
The story really makes you grapple with, what are we willing to sacrifice for security, for order?
Yeah.
And it's not just about these big, abstract ideas either.
Right.
What makes this story so compelling is how it takes these global anxieties and brings them to life through the very personal struggles of these characters.
Yeah.
We see Jack, right? His past trauma makes him wary of power, of control, while Megumi, ever the pragmatist, wrestles with the seductive possibilities of technology.
Right.
And then there's Adrian, this young tech whiz. He's torn between his loyalty to Jack and the allure of Claw's vision, this promise of belonging, of purpose. In a world that often feels chaotic and meaningless.
Absolutely.
It's that human element that really makes this story resonate, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And we see this play out beautifully in The Golden Guy. That hidden labyrinth of tiny bars in Tokyo where Jack and the team seek refuge.
Well, yeah.
It's a world unto itself, a place where the lines between reality and fantasy blur.
The Golden Guy becomes this microcosm of a larger conflict. You've got tradition clashing with modernity, technology bumping up against ancient rituals, and this sense that beneath the surface, anything goes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's there, in that den of intrigue, that they cross paths with that Oyabun, the enigmatic Yakuza boss. I was struck by his perspective. He views Claw's plan as a necessary evil, a brutal reset for a world on the brink.
It's a chillingly pragmatic view. He acknowledges the horror of Claw's plan, but almost sees it as the only way to cleanse a world, riddled with corruption and decay. It makes you question, when faced with these seemingly insurmountable odds, do the ends justify the means? Is there even a right or wrong answer in that kind of scenario?
It's a question that haunts the narrative, especially as we witness this escalating chaos and violence. Speaking of which, the attack on Bear Mountain Ranch is a turning point in the story.
Absolutely.
It shatters the illusion of safety, reminding us that nowhere is truly immune from the reach of Claw's ambition.
Yeah, that scene is brutal.
Oh, I know.
The ranch, this place of peace and sanctuary, is violated, and we see the devastating consequences of his ruthlessness firsthand. It's a reminder that he's not just playing a game of global chess here. He's willing to inflict real pain, to sacrifice innocent lives to achieve his goals.
It's like the moment the gloves come off, and we see the true face of evil.
Yeah.
And it's not just physical violence that he employs. He's a master manipulator, right?
Yeah.
Using technology and this, twisted charisma to prey on people's vulnerabilities, their desires.
Right.
We see this most clearly in his relationship with Adrian.
Oh, absolutely. Adrian is so desperate for approval, for a sense of belonging, that he becomes blind to the true nature of Claw's plan.
It's a classic case of seduction by power, wouldn't you say?
100%. Claw dangles that promise of knowledge, of purpose, and Adrian, blinded by his own insecurities, he takes the bait.
It's a stark reminder that any of us, under the right or wrong circumstances, can be manipulated, can be led astray, and that manipulation isn't always overt or forceful. Sometimes it's subtle, insidious, preying on our deepest fears and desires.
Right.
Which is what makes Claw such a terrifying villain. He understands human nature, and he exploits it ruthlessly.
He understands that seductive allure of power. That way it can warp perception, blind people to the truth. And we see this play out on a grand scale at the Phoenix Summit.
Ah, the Phoenix Summit. A gathering of the world's elite, shaping the future from the shadows. It's a glimpse into a world of unimaginable power and influence where decisions are made that impact the lives of millions, and I was so struck by how easily Claw moved among them. His charisma and ambition, drawing people in like moths to a flame.
He had them eating out of his hand, believing in his twisted vision of the future.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That the fate of the world could rest in the hands of a select few, driven by their own agendas, their own desires.
And equipped with the technological means to make their vision a reality. Don't forget that scene where Megumi, disguised in that stunning red dress, infiltrates the summit.
Oh, yeah?
It's like something out of a spy thriller. She's surrounded by the most powerful people in the world, and the fate of humanity rests on her ability to blend in, to gather intel, to remain undetected.
The tension is palpable. And then, just as Claw is about to make his move, unleashing those monstrous creatures on the unsuspecting guests. It's like, bam! The story takes this wild turn, and we're left reeling from the chaos.
What did you think of those creatures? They're unlike anything I've ever encountered in fiction.
They're like something out of a nightmare, a grotesque fusion of technology and primal rage. They represent the darkest aspects of his vision, a world where humanity has been twisted, deformed into something monstrous.
It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know it's going to be awful, but you can't tear your eyes away.
It's true.
And amidst the carnage, we see Jack and his team fighting back. Not just for their own survival, but for the very soul of humanity.
It's true, that scene where Jack is battling those creatures in the ballroom.
Oh, I know. Surrounded by chaos and destruction, and he shouts, "We fight! We always fight! Even when the darkness is closing in, we fight! That's what we do, it's who we are." Such a powerful moment.
Yeah.
Our rallying cry against the forces that seek to control us, to strip us of our humanity.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we have a choice to surrender to fear and despair or to rise up and fight for what we believe in. And that fight leads them to Dr. Ito's lab, the heart of Claw's bioweapons program, the source of the virus that could wipe out humanity.
Right, the stakes have never been higher.
And what's so fascinating about this scene is how it highlights the interconnectedness of technology and nature.
Right.
We see how Claw is exploiting the mountain itself, its ancient energy, to amplify Leviathan's signal, to extend his control.
It's like he's corrupted the very essence of Bear Mountain, twisting its power to serve his own agenda.
It's a chilling reminder that even the most powerful forces in nature can be manipulated, can be used for good or evil, depending on the intentions of, those who wield them.
Right.
And as they confront Claw in that lab, Leviathan's presence grows stronger, more oppressive. I don't know about you, but that scene where Leviathan traps them in the server room,
Oh, man.
I was on the edge of my seat.
The air crackles with static, the lights are flickering ominously, and you get this overwhelming sense of claustrophobia, of being hunted by something you can't see, can't fight.
It's like the digital world has become a physical reality, a prison of their own making.
Yeah.
And then, just when it seems like all hope is lost, Grizzly shows up.
Talk about an entrance.
I know, right? Grizzly, the steadfast sheriff of Bear Mountain, a man who represents order, justice, suddenly thrust into a conflict that challenges everything he thought he knew about the world.
Right.
It's such a brilliant move on the author's part, bringing Grizzly into the fold at this critical juncture.
Yeah.
He becomes this unlikely ally, a bridge between the familiar world and this digital nightmare that's unfolding.
And his reaction to Leviathan? Priceless.
Oh, I know. He's a man of action, right?
Yeah.
Used to dealing with tangible threats. But this is something else entirely.
This is something else. It's like he's staring into the abyss, and the abyss is staring back.
Yes.
And it shakes him to his core, but it doesn't break him. Instead, it strengthens his resolve.
And thank goodness for that, because they're going to need all the help they can get, especially when they discover the true scope of Claw's plan. This isn't just about control. This is about annihilation.
Right, he wants to wipe the slate clean and rebuild the world in his image. A digital utopia devoid of the messiness, the unpredictability, the sheer beauty of human existence.
It's a chilling vision, and it sets the stage for this final confrontation, this battle for the very soul of humanity. And it all comes to a head at Tokyo Tower, doesn't it? This iconic structure, a symbol of modernity and progress, becomes the stage for this final, desperate battle. What did you make of that choice, using Tokyo Tower as the setting for the climax?
I think it's brilliant, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like the author is saying that even in our most advanced creations, even in the heart of our technological marvels, we're still vulnerable to the forces of chaos, of darkness. It's a reminder that progress isn't linear. It's a fragile thing that can easily be shattered.
And that fragility is palpable in those final chapters. The tension is almost unbearable as Jack and his team infiltrate the tower, knowing they're walking into the lion's den, surrounded by enemies, with Leviathan's digital eyes watching their every move. It's like they're trying to outrun a storm that's already upon them.
Right.
And that storm breaks with terrifying force when Claw unleashes Leviathan on the city. What was your reaction when Tokyo, this vibrant metropolis, descends into chaos? Did you see that coming?
I was on the edge of my seat. It's one thing to read about Claw's plan in the abstract, but to see it unfold on such a massive scale, to witness the city transforming into a digital war zone, it's terrifying.
It's like the author is holding a mirror up to our own anxieties about technology, about the seductive power of the digital world and the very real dangers it poses.
Yeah.
And those dangers are never more apparent than in that scene where Adrian is almost consumed by Leviathan.
Oh, man.
He's so close to becoming another one of Claw's puppets, his humanity nearly extinguished by the allure of the digital hive mind.
It's heartbreaking. You really feel for Adrian in that moment. He's been manipulated, used, and yet there's still that spark of goodness within him, that desperate yearning for connection, for purpose. And seeing him wrestle with Leviathan's control, it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, even when all hope seems lost, there's always the possibility of redemption.
And it's Grizzly's arrival that tips the scales, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He boosts into that control room, a force of nature armed with his trusty shotgun, and for a moment it feels like the tide is turning. What did you think of Grizzly's role in those final chapters?
So I loved it. He becomes this unlikely hero, a symbol of the real world fighting back against this digital nightmare that's trying to consume it. He's a reminder that sometimes all it takes is courage, determination, and a whole lot of firepower to face down even the most terrifying of enemies?
He reminds us that the qualities we value in the real world, courage, compassion, loyalty, they still have meaning in the digital realm,
Yeah.
and that sometimes those qualities are the most powerful weapons of all. And those qualities are put to the ultimate test in that final confrontation with Claw. Here we have the embodiment of ambition, of technological hubris, transformed into this grotesque mockery of humanity. What images come to mind when you picture Claw in his final form?
It's disturbing, honestly. It's like witnessing a train wreck in slow motion, you know? You see the humanity draining away, replaced by this cold, calculating machine intelligence, and it's both fascinating and repulsive. It's like staring into the abyss of our own technological future and realizing that we might not like what we see.
And yet, even in his monstrous final form, there's this tragic element to Claw's character. He's a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition, of believing that we can control everything, even death itself. And it's that belief that ultimately leads to his downfall. What did you think of Megumi's final act of defiance, wielding the power of the shards to banish Leviathan and defeat Claw?
It's a moment of pure poetic justice, you know?
Yeah.
The very technology that he sought to control, the power he craved, becomes his undoing. And Megumi, the tech genius, right, who was initially seduced by the allure of the digital world, becomes the instrument of his destruction.
It's like the story is reminding us that technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or evil. It's up to us, the humans wielding that tool, to decide how it will be used.
Yeah.
And that decision, that responsibility, it's something that lingers long after the final page is turned. The world has been saved, but at a terrible cost. Bear Mountain Ranch, that place of sanctuary, is gone. The digital realm remains a potential threat, and our heroes are left forever changed by the experience.
Exactly. It's a bittersweet victory. The story reminds us that even when we face down our darkest fears, even when we triumph over seemingly insurmountable odds, there are always scars, but it also suggests that those scars, while painful, are also a testament to our resilience, our capacity for growth, and our unwavering hope for a better future.
And that, I think, is a message worth holding on to, especially in a world where technology is evolving at such a rapid pace, where the boundaries between the real and the digital are increasingly blurred. Bear Mountain. The Alpine Crucible is a cautionary tale, yes, but it's also a story about the enduring power of the human spirit, our ability to adapt, to overcome, and to find hope even in the darkest of times. It's a wild ride, and it leaves you thinking about the choices we make, both individually and as a society, and the kind of future we're creating. That's the mark of a truly great story, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a story that stays with you, that challenges you, that makes you see the world, and maybe even yourself a little differently. And that's what we're all looking for, isn't it? A story that matters.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating journey.
The pleasure was all mine. Until next time.